This I'll be quick so we can go back to the pizza and the drinks. I'm going to talk about our own experience with vibe coding with Flutter. And the point here is not to give you like straight rules or how you should do things. It's more about our own experience with it. So what went wrong, what went good. And if there's something you can pick here, I think it's a win. It's important to know that this technology is moving so fast. So whatever I present here, it might be relevant in a few months, but I think it's a good experience. So I'm going to just give a brief explanation about myself. So I've been a freelance mobile developer almost like 15 years now. I work in some big companies, some nice startups. Some of you here are my ex-colleagues. And my idea always been to kind of mix between startups and corporate world. I really wanted to have both experience. And when I started my own company, I wanted to apply the good things I pick up from this experience. What I saw good in corporate, what I saw good in startups. And when I created my own startup, I wanted to apply this experience, but only pick the good parts. So we had a new client recently, and he wanted us to build an MVP for him with Flutter. Right? It was to be mobile and web. And we decided that it is a good opportunity for us to experiment about building all this with vibe coding. As you know, it's a very hot topic right now. So we had this initial plan. We decided that we're going to use cursor like everyone else, right? We're going to have a very, very big system prompt. For those of you who don't know, system prompt is kind of the initial instruction you give to AI, like the first rules you need to follow. I'm not sure if you see that well, but it was quite big. Our idea was, okay, we know it can go crazy, so let's give him a lot of rules to follow. And we had a base architecture which is based on block, which we know block is good. We used it before. So our idea was we give the architecture, we give like a huge system prompt, and we use cursor AI, and then we just talk, right? We avoid coding. We're just gonna prompt. We used, I think, Claude 3.7 at that point. That was the initial plan, right? So what went wrong very quickly? When we use cursor AI, as we saw before, we can choose between ask or agent. When we use agent and we give him a big picture of what we want to do, it starts going crazy stuff. And what I noticed for myself is that it becomes very quickly very tempting to stop verifying, right? It starts throwing accept. And at the beginning, we're just going to read everything, we're going to verify everything, but very quickly it becomes overwhelming, right? It is throwing commands, it is creating code, classes, data classes, and at some point it becomes very tempting to say, okay, accept, and let's next prompt, right? This is the first thing I noticed, that it is dangerous to keep accepting, right? We become boring of reading this code. We all know that sometimes reading code is more difficult than writing code, and in this scenario, it's constantly reading code fast, right? It just shooting code everywhere, and when we test, it kind of works, right? So you decide, well, I'm not going to read everything, I'm just going to test it. It works, fine, accept, next one. And even if we are developers ourselves, a lot of things start slipping in the code, and this is one of the craziest examples. In one of the screens for the app, we want the user to choose his language. So he built these language flags, and one of them was Spanish. I'm not sure if you can see it right, but what happened here that it has created a class that will draw only the coat of arms, so not even the flag, just the logo. And this was 500 and something lines, right? Nobody asked him to do that. Nobody asked you to make logos, so it was 500 lines just for this. Right? We're not even talking about the flag, right? This could be just a simple PNG. Yes?
Is it more performant than a simple PNG or no?
I doubt. I know. I was just a bit shocked that it went to that extent, right? And this is one of the craziest examples. What we noticed very fast is that it loves adding code. It's not good at optimizing existing code. Every problem is solved by adding more and more code. Another thing I noticed that some issues I had to fix myself, it will revert them further on, right? If it wrote bike, for example, I will just erase that, it will put it back, right? So things become, even if we're making progress, and when you run the app, the happy flow was more or less there, I saw that things are getting out of hand, right? And we're already 1 month in. There was a lot of code generated, and I start feeling that things are going badly. And what I did, I decided to call an expert. So some of you might recognize him. He's here. I decided that, okay, we are developers, but I wouldn't say that we are Flutter experts, right? I know that we are more or less okay, we're aware of the framework, but I wouldn't go to the extent saying we are Flutter experts. And I decided to bring a Flutter expert. And his first task was to, okay, have a look of this mess, I would call it. And immediately he saw a lot of problems, right? It was obvious, and this was my kind of worries immediately, that we have to course correct now or it will be too late after, right? Because we keep adding more code, it will become unmaintainable, right? We're not striving for perfection, we're striving for maintainable software, right? No code is perfect, but when it's deployed, you have to be able to maintain it, right? That's more or less what we do after, and it's not maintainable, it's a problem. So Fred did a lot of good work for us. He did code review, he did a refactoring, he, I believe, erased a lot of code. I myself erased a lot of code, so things start to get better, which make me feel a bit more confident that, okay, it's not too late, right? So it was important for us to have this exercise more or less in the halfway, because further on it's too late, right? With too much code generated, we are approaching the deadline, and even if the client is unaware, I didn't find fair that, okay, it might work, but I know that it's not maintainable, right? If someone else picked it up, he will scream. So first step was that we had Fred on board, and even with 2 days of work, he made a huge impact on our code. That was already good. Then the second step I took was to try to isolate the generation of code, right? I'm going to show another example further on. But the idea is that don't give it the big picture. I'm not talking what I need to build in general. I'm only giving him instructions about something very isolated, unaware of what's going on. So I can isolate it and kind of supervise it only there, right? So in the cursor, I switch to only ask. I'll never go agent, I'll just ask, and I wouldn't go to accept anymore. Or I'll go to external tool like Claude, for example, the native app, and I'll ask there, and when I'm really happy there, I'm just going to copy paste. I try to avoid the integrated code generation directly in IDE. So went from cursor back to Android Studio or IntelliJ, what I like. Personally, I'm not that big fan of cursor because I feel it's a bit abstracted, where I worked a lot with IntelliJ and I found full control there. I feel at home. And I feel that it's not that AI friendly yet. It will be, like all of them, but I feel more in control. Although cursor, it was, I think, designed to be, I would say, more abstract, right? Less configuration, just generate code and accept, right? And this is the thing that for, I would say, more or less, I consider myself an experienced developer. I didn't like that much. I felt that I'm not in control anymore. So at the end, we reverted to 70-30. So human versus code generation, right? So we approach some isolated use case where it's going to give us a lot of head start, but the majority was done by us. In the next slide, I'm going to show you, I'm going to talk a bit more about this isolation prompt approach. This is a sneak peek of conceptual app we're working on. We have a small GIF on the right. What this does is an idea where the whole application itself is just a canvas with the LLM. And the UI is dynamically generated on demand, which means what? There's no longer screens and menus navigation. I would ask it, I want to change my password, and there will be just a widget, change your password, right? I would ask it something else. It will dynamically show me UI only what I want right now. For this demo app, I use a lot of code generation, like 80% of code generation, but it worked much, much, much better. The approach was completely different. In this concept, we have more or less 4 steps, I would say. When the user speaks to the app, we have to transcript from voice to text. We have to send that to LLM. LLM gives us a text back as a prompt, and we want to play back. It means that it speaks, right? So user speaks, the front end shows a widget, some text, and also speaks back to him. So I broke that to 4 different steps. We first transcript, then send to LLM, then LLM will go text to voice, and something needs to play. The OpenAI will give us an MP3 file. And I didn't prompt the big picture. I just started with something. I just want to transcript, nothing more. Make a service that transcript. Keep it in one class, it's a service. The service needs to output a text, right? If the user speaks hello, that service at the end, it just needs to output as a string hello, right? And it just lives there. It doesn't know what's going on around it. It has one job only. And I prompt this in Cursor, in the Cloud Native app, like the Anthropic. And I only work on that, right? I'm not happy. I spend some time, and when things are done, copy paste in the code. In this case, I use IntelliJ. Same approach for the other services. We have a service that receives the text from the first one, and he needs to make a call to LLM. That's again closed by itself, and it just goes. In this case, I use another platform which is just hosting open source. It's not OpenAI, but it's very similar. In this case, it receives the text from the first one. It makes API call to LLM. LLM goes back. It returns a text. Same approach for text to voice. Now this needs to get the text as a string, and it needs to return MP3. So that's another service, another isolation. They all talk to each other, and they just run one after another. And in the end, we have a final approach. And with this type of isolation approach, without sharing the big picture to the LLM, the result was much, much, much better. So here I was able to build this concept quite quickly, right? With this approach, for example, playing the MP3 file on iOS was, I don't know, some kind of exceptions or whatever, that the LLM was quite good to handle, right? It's just ask, I need to play MP3 on iOS with Flutter, and it will generate the code I need. I'll still verify, but it's easy to verify something has a single purpose. And I'll easily spot, okay, you're going too much. I don't need to care about, let's say, optimizing the byte stream. No. Basic, simple, done. In many cases, when I see long code, I would say even stupid things like it's impossible that you need so much code. And it will say, yeah, it's your right. And then it go to 5-6 lines, right? I would use my developer kind of judgment to say that's not possible. Even if I'm not familiar with, let's say, some part of it, I would see that's not possible. It's impossible. Flutter cannot play MP3 file with more than 5-6 lines. I'm sorry, but you're going to wait out of the way, and it will correct it, right? And with this approach, I saw a huge time saving, right? This isolated approach, I was able to build something quite quickly. This is from my part. It was a bit quick, but I think we are already a bit over time. Do we have any questions? Yes?
Just wondering, you say the UI is generated.
Yes.
What do you use behind the scenes to build up the screens?
So the way it works is there is some kind of initial instruction to LLM defining toCalling, and it will be instructed of I create additional protocol between the LLM in JSON, knowing that the LLM will always return a JSON with the message. For example, it always gives you one line, for example, is please type your password, and then it will tell me what type of kind of widget I need to build in the screen. And in some cases, if all I need is to know that it's change password, right? I don't need further than that. The app builds that widget, and then if you change the password, the app itself calls APIs, right? In some cases, the LLM might give you additional instructions. Let's say you need this type of functionality and some additional actions, right? But it's some kind of a protocol in between, right? And the LLM always returns JSON format with the message and what type of widget it could be. Maybe there's no widget, and then app picks it up from there, knows what to do. So it's a combination between the old way of doing things, API calls, REST API calls, change password is still calling the server, but there's no navigation anymore, right? The user gets what he needs on the spot based on whatever he needs. And he might say, I want to change my password, I want to change my language, and it's going to show you just languages to select. And when you switch, then LLM starts talking French or Dutch also. And again, in this type of approach, the code is working quite well. Yes?
What kind of issues you had with hallucinations?
So in this case, this is still proof of concept. It was not tested that much, but from time to time, I would see that it just returns wrong JSON, because I use like low-level LLM, like Llama 3.2 or like something like even below 70 billion parameters, because I feel it doesn't need more, right? I don't feel I need to call OpenAI or something big for that, right? So I'll start with something very basic, see how it behaves, and I'm happy with it, I'll stay there. I will not go for something huge that this is not that complicated, right? It just needs to return JSONs in some type, so it's not that complicated. But on the low-level models, I would see JSONs is wrong, not closed, or we build some functionality where it needs to fetch some devices, IoT devices, and if it doesn't find devices, it will just create himself, right? We will see this. Yeah, I think the more we go further, the more we start seeing hallucination. And then it's trial and error. We go to prompt, back to system prompt, give more examples, work on, I don't know. Usually we try to solve it with system prompt, is the easy way, right? We say, okay, if you find no devices, never return or things like that, right?
Yeah.
We always try to correct on system prompt because it is the easiest way, right?
It makes super sense.
Yeah. But luckily, if we see too much issues, we bump up the model a little bit. We go to something more parameters and things like that. I use a platform called Nebus because it has all of them open source, and they use the same SDK as OpenAI, which means that if one day we want to switch to OpenAI, I just need to change the base URL and the model name, and that's it.
Perfect.
So it's very, very easy to navigate.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes?
You said this is a proof of concept.
Yes?
If successful, where does it go?
Well, it depends. I think that we are service provider. We don't build products for ourselves. So this will go to clients and trying to see if they see this in their apps, and then we start integrating. This is how we see this. This could be an app from scratch. It could be integrated to existing product. But most companies, they start with experimentation. What they want to see this part of their app, see how it behaves. Especially big companies, they have some money to spend on proof of concept for AI, but they're not ready to go to production. But it needs to start from somewhere. So this is something that we're going to build further and further, and then see with our clients, promote it and see who is ready to test this, to try that. This is how I see the vision of apps. I believe AI will change, not only I will change everything. And then I've been a mobile developer for many years, and I think that this makes sense in a way that it will not fit any case, but it might fit some cases, right? Things you're just talking to your app and it's just going to show you what you need right now. nothing more, nothing further. I work on apps with endless menus and navigations, and people just don't know what to do. They abandon, they cannot find it in a few seconds, they abandon the app, right? The more the app grows, it's more challenging to keep adding menus, even when people have designers and product owners. If the app is big, it's big, and they just don't know where to start fitting new stuff. And sometimes even for developer, it's harder to find his way. So if it's harder for us, you can imagine for a user. Rather than I want to add new IoT device, just a quick widget with what you need to do, or it will be a head start. So in some cases you can do the action on itself exactly, but in some case it will just give you maybe just a button and say, okay, click here to start the flow, right? It will send you to the flow. Yes?
I think what you've built is also quite similar to how KBCs doing it in Kate.
Yeah.
If, for example, you need your insurance papers for your car, you can just
Exactly.
which
Exactly.
makes sense. I saw one of your clients is already KBC. So
Yes.
maybe upselling.
Well, back then Kate was very bad. I think it is getting better because they have, of course, unlimited budget. I think the challenge of such solution is, I won't say building the widgets in the LLM, it's more about integrating to what they have already. And with a corporate like that, it's very hard. For a smaller company, it could be easier to integrate. Integration to existing process and software is always harder, right? We can build something quick, but integrate to what they have already, that will be a challenge. And I think this will make sense for companies who are ready to experiment, and they feel that they want to try early. So we have already clients like that who want to invest, start early. Maybe it will work, maybe it don't work, but at least they are ready to experiment.
Cool.
Thank you. We have one more question.
Here is a question from non-developer. Thanks, Ivo. It was very insightful.
Thank you.
Coming back to the topic of Cursor and your experience with it, would you say that Cursor might be a fit for a non-developer entrepreneur who is trying to test some quick ideas, but also with supervision of developer? Do you think?
Yeah, I think it's good. I think that Cursor will get better and better. That's for sure. And I think for non-developer, it's good to experiment, build proof of concepts, but be aware that it's not a production. Like it's something that you can show to your clients to inspire them, but I wouldn't say that you can release that and start selling that. Not at all, right? If you want to build quickly, inspire, show to clients, to investors, I think it's a good tool. But maybe a developer will use it in a different way, that he will start building since the beginning, but in a way that, okay, you don't need to start from scratch further on. Maybe a no developer, if he gets success, he'll have to start from scratch because it was done quickly. That's my opinion. So for sure, yes, but not for, I've seen this in the past. We did something quick for clients and they want to put it in the market already because they saw 20 screens done in 2 weeks. And I told them since the beginning, be careful, that's not a production app ready. So show it to your investors, but that's it. We're not. If you go further, I'm starting from scratch. But they see the temptation that they say, okay, we have this thing, has 20 screens, it's kind of working. Okay, let's go. Let's start charging. I say, no, I will not maintain that. This is your responsibility. I gave you my opinion that just a proof of concept. So I think it can serve both. Yeah.
Thank you.
No problem.